but you're not my real family, aren't you?" My sister's triumphant voice echoed from the other end of the line. With that single sentence, something inside me was completely severed. The beginning of this incident came from a casual glance at my social media feed. After finishing a long day's work, I had sunk deep into my favorite sofa, enjoying a moment of relaxation with a glass in hand. As I scrolled through the timeline, my eyes froze on a single photo a friend had uploaded. It showed an elegant wedding invitation, printed on glossy pearl paper, the couple's names embossed in gold, luxurious in every sense. And the bride's name engraved there was my sister, Olivia. "Olivia, congratulations on your engagement. Thank you for such a beautiful invitation. I can't wait for the wedding." That message from a friend was followed by a flood of cheerful comments. "Congratulations. Can't wait to see your dress." A chorus of joy echoing through the screen. But in stark contrast to that festive scene, my heart began to pound with an uneasy rhythm, because that invitation had never arrived for me. My name is Natalie. I'm the owner of Eternal Garden, the most exclusive wedding venue in this city, one that's always fully booked. It's a business I built entirely on my own, now a model of success admired by many. I've produced countless weddings, helping couples celebrate the most radiant moments of their lives. And yet, I might not be invited to my own sister's wedding. A few months ago, Olivia told me she was getting married. Right after I congratulated her, she pleaded, "Could you use your connections to reserve that famous hotel for me?" Using my professional network, I managed to secure the reservation, something normally impossible. And yet, nothing has arrived for me since. Was the mail delayed? Or was Olivia planning to hand it to me personally? I ran through every possibility in my mind, but experience whispered the harshest truth. I put down my glass and picked up my smartphone. I dialed Olivia's number. After a few rings, her bright, slightly surprised voice answered. "Oh, Natalie? What's up? It's kind of late." I took a deep breath and forced my tone to stay calm. "Olivia, how's the wedding preparation going?" Her voice rose another octave, sparkling with excitement. "Yes, of course. It's the busiest time, but also the most exciting. I just finished sending out all the invitations." "I see, good work. About those invitations, actually." I got straight to the point. Could it be that mine just hasn't arrived yet by mistake? The moment I asked, I heard Olivia quietly chuckle on the other end of the line. That malicious laugh shattered the faint hope I had been clinging to. "A mistake? No, there's no mistake." She was enjoying it, that cruel pleasure of hurting me at that very moment. Then, in a triumphant tone, she drove in the final blade. "Because you're my sister, but not really my family, aren't you?" For a moment, I forgot how to breathe, but I quickly regained my composure. "That's quite an interesting thing to say, Olivia." My voice was lower, colder than I expected. "We may not be connected by blood. Yes, that's true. But tell me, what was it that this so-called not-family sister did for you?" I could hear Olivia gasp faintly through the phone. I continued, "That 5-star hotel you dreamed of. The one that usually has a 1-year waiting list? Who do you think pulled strings to secure it for you? You can't even imagine how much trust I've built in this industry. And I spent that trust on you, just to grant one selfish request. Tell me, does that sound like something a non-family member would do?" For a brief moment, Olivia was silent. Then, with her usual mix of childishness and venom, she snapped back. "So what? You're successful, aren't you? It's only natural. That's your duty as family." Duty. That one word was the final blow. The last remnants of my illusion of family vanished completely. "I see. All right then," I said quietly. "I'll make sure to fulfill that duty of yours, to the letter. I'll give you the perfect wedding." Before Olivia could respond, I ended the call. The screen went dark, and in the silence of the room, only my cold resolve remained. My parents, who had been unable to have children, once welcomed me into their lives as their adopted daughter. But a few years after I came into their home, a miracle happened. My younger sister, Olivia, their biological child, was born. From that day on, the balance of their love visibly tilted toward the daughter connected by blood. Olivia was adored like the sun itself, while I became a shadow, holding my breath so as not to dim her light. Yet that lonely environment nurtured my independence and gave me the strength to carve my own path without relying on anyone. For every ounce of love they failed to give me, I poured that energy into my work and built my success with it. A part of me wanted to believe that this was all Olivia's selfish decision alone, and so I needed to confirm with my own hands whether my parents knew the truth. I pulled up my mother's number. "Hello, Mom? I have something to ask about Olivia's wedding." I got straight to the point. On the other end, I could hear my mother sigh. "What is it?" Her voice was cold, as if I had just handed her a tedious chore. "I wasn't invited to the wedding. Did you know that?" "Oh, yes, Olivia told me. Don't bother calling me over something so trivial." She spoke without the slightest hint of guilt. "Is that really a problem? It's Olivia's wedding. Naturally, her feelings should come first." "Because I'm not related by blood? Is that your answer, Mom?" I struggled to keep my voice from trembling. Her reply was brutally cruel, more than enough to tear through my heart. "It can't be helped. Facts are facts. You're an adult now, so you should understand and endure it for Olivia's sake." At that moment, I understood everything. To them, I was nothing more than a convenient tool, my existence entirely disregarded. "I see." That was all I said before quietly ending the call. Now, there was nothing left to hesitate about. This little family charade, I would be the one to end it. Calmly, I began to act. My first call was to the manager of the country's most prestigious five-star hotel. He was one of my most trusted business partners. "Manager, I'd like to discuss my sister's wedding. She wants only the best. Could you please upgrade everything? The venue, the flowers, the menu, to the Royal Platinum plan?" I could hear him gasp faintly on the other end of the line. "Miss Natalie, with that plan, the budget will triple. Are you sure about this?" "That's fine, but there's one condition. Please send every invoice directly to the bride, my sister, Olivia Miller." The quiet authority in my voice left him with no choice but to reply, "Understood." I repeated the same request with every vendor on the list. The wedding cake, crafted by a world-famous pâtissier, was upgraded to a 7-tier custom masterpiece. The rental dress became a one-of-a-kind haute couture gown flown in from Paris. The wedding favors were replaced with luxury dinnerware sets from an internationally renowned celebrity brand. And, of course, every invoice was addressed to Olivia. The ridiculous promise that I would cover all the expenses had been made just after securing the venue. It was the very day I used my industry reputation to achieve the impossible, booking the 5-star hotel everyone wanted. When I called to share the good news, Olivia was ecstatic. "Really? You're amazing, Natalie. I can't believe it." Before her excitement had even cooled, she smoothly shifted to the real reason for her call, without the slightest hint of guilt. "So, about the cost. I'm really sorry, but Ethan's business is going through a rough patch right now, and we can't prepare the wedding funds immediately, so we were thinking, maybe you could pay everything up front and we'll pay you back little by little afterward." As I held the phone, I wasn't shocked. Instead, a cold sense of doubt crept into my mind. Her words sounded far too convenient. Did they really intend to pay me back? Or was this simply an excuse to dump everything on me? To test her, I asked quietly, "Did you talk to Mom and Dad about this?" Olivia replied cheerfully, as if she'd been waiting for that question. "Of course." I asked Mom, and she said, "Why don't you talk to Natalie?" She told me, "Natalie's doing well financially, and your family, helping each other in times of need is only natural, right?" The moment I heard that, I was too stunned to even respond. Help each other because we're family? No. They come to me because I'm successful, because I have money. If I were penniless, they wouldn't even glance in my direction. To them, family is nothing more than a convenient word, used only when it benefits them. Their shameless audacity no longer made me angry. It almost seemed comical. But I didn't let that emotion show in my voice. Calmly, and in the tone I used for business, I replied, "All right, I'll cover the full cost." For a brief moment, I heard Olivia let out a sigh of relief on the other end, but I immediately continued. "However, there's one condition. This isn't a gift. It's a loan. We'll sign a formal contract that includes a clear repayment plan. And any additional costs, such as plan upgrades not stated in the contract, will naturally be your responsibility. Is that understood?" "A contract? And we have to cover extra fees ourselves?" Olivia's voice shot up in panic. But we're family. Isn't that so cold? Don't you trust me? Trust has nothing to do with this, Olivia. My voice was as calm and cold as ice. This is how I handle business. The amount is too large. Even between close people, money matters must be written down properly. Otherwise, they always cause trouble later. This is for your own good as well. Faced with my unshakable tone, Olivia was at a loss for words. After a long pause, she muttered reluctantly, "Fine. Good. I'll have my lawyer send the official documents soon. Once you've signed them, I'll proceed with the payments. Is that all right with you?" Without giving her a chance to argue, I ended the call. Recalling that conversation now, I couldn't help but smile coldly. After finishing all the vendor arrangements, I exhaled deeply. By the time the wedding ended, Olivia and Ethan would receive a staggering stack of invoices, an amount far beyond their ability to pay. In no time, their repayments would halt, and their social credibility would crumble. But my thoughts didn't stop there. This was Olivia I was dealing with. She was a master manipulator, a woman who could twist tears and blame into tools of survival. She would cry, "My sister tricked me," or "She forced me into an expensive plan," and throw herself at the mercy of our parents or Ethan, winning their sympathy with ease. If that happened, this revenge would be reduced to nothing more than a petty financial quarrel, just another ugly family dispute in the public eye. That wouldn't be enough. Far too lenient. So my mind turned to Olivia's fiancé, Ethan. I replayed her words in my head once more. Ethan's business is going through a rough time, and we can't prepare the wedding funds right now. Was that really true? After years as a business owner who'd seen every kind of person, my instincts were screaming a warning. A man whose company is truly in trouble doesn't plan an extravagant wedding beyond his means. And he certainly wouldn't so easily agree to let his fiancé's sister cover the entire cost. That is not something a person with pride would do. Could it be that this man, Ethan, is the same kind of person as Olivia? Someone who parasitizes others and feels no pain in exploiting their goodwill. Or perhaps something worse. He might have approached Olivia with my assets as his true target. I recalled the contract I had made Olivia promise to sign. This is not a gift, but a loan. Yes, this was business. It was the same as my company lending a massive sum to a joint venture called Olivia and Ethan. If so, conducting a credit check on the borrowers was nothing more than standard risk management for an owner. I reminded myself of this. This was legitimate due diligence to protect the precious assets I had built. I would determine whether the other party was worthy of trust. If it turned out that Ethan was sincere and conscientious, I would end this plan with nothing more than a financial blow. Perhaps, in some small corner of my heart, I had been hoping that the man my sister chose would be a decent human being. From my smartphone's contacts, I pulled up a certain number. It was the number of the head of an investigative firm I trusted completely for corporate disputes and background checks. "This is Natalie. I need you to investigate someone urgently." In a steady voice, I requested a thorough inquiry into his career history, social connections, and above all, his relationships with women. Several days later, a thick envelope from the firm arrived at my office. Its heavy weight seemed to foretell the outcome already. The moment I broke the seal and skimmed the contents, my suspicion hardened into certainty. What I saw there was desire and deceit so foul that even the word vile felt too gentle. By the time I turned the first page of the report, the gossamer thin hope that the man my sister had chosen might be decent snapped cleanly. While dating Olivia, Ethan had, at the same time, maintained serious relationships with 2 other women. At least 2 that could be confirmed. The report contained photographs documenting in exact detail the dates and times he entered hotels with each woman. In one image, he was seen fastening a necklace, the same brand he had given to Olivia, around another woman's neck, smiling at her with unmistakable intimacy. There wasn't even a shadow of guilt on his face. What horrified me even more were the screenshots of his messages. Just hours after sending Olivia, "You're the one I was destined to find?" He had texted another woman, "I love you. Once I break up with Olivia, I'll be with you." But the most damning piece was a conversation with one of his friends. "Her sister owns a famous wedding venue. This marriage is an investment in our future." My wealth. So that was his true goal. Olivia was merely a convenient stepping stone toward it. Without showing any emotion, I began scanning each piece of evidence one by one. The process felt like fitting together the final pieces of a puzzle. I saved every image, every glimpse of Ethan's true nature, onto a USB drive. When I placed it in the drawer, there was a faint, dry click. That sound marked the moment my resolve solidified. Now, the decisive evidence was complete. All that remained was to wait for the perfect stage, the wedding, where the bride, Olivia, would plunge into the depths of despair. A week before the ceremony, I clutched the small USB drive and knocked on Haley's door. She had been my closest friend since childhood and now worked as a director at a company specializing in audiovisual systems. By a fortunate coincidence, her firm was in charge of managing the visual and sound systems at the five-star hotel where Olivia's wedding would take place. She was the only person who truly knew how I had been treated in that so-called family that never shared my blood. When Haley opened the door and saw the tension in my expression, she seemed to understand everything without a single word. She quietly ushered me into the living room. "The big day's coming next week. Are you sure you're ready for this?" Offering me a cup of warm herbal tea, Haley looked straight into my eyes. I nodded slowly and placed the USB drive on the table. "There's something I need you to do. I want you to replace the video that will be played that day with what's on this." Haley glanced briefly at the small memory stick, but didn't ask about its contents. "It's my little congratulatory message for Olivia." At my icy joke, she drew in a quiet breath, then clasped my hand tightly. "All right. If this is what you've decided, I'll see it through with you to the end." The warmth of her hand and the unwavering strength in her eyes were all I needed. There was a genuine bond there, something that had never existed within my false family. The day of the wedding arrived. The grand ballroom of the five-star hotel was filled with pure white flowers and glittering crystal chandeliers, no doubt resembling a scene straight out of a fairy tale. The star of the day, Olivia, must have been glowing in the haute couture gown I had arranged for her, worth millions, soaking in the admiration of the guests with a radiant smile. My parents, too, were surely beaming with pride at the sight of their beloved daughter's shining moment. They had no idea that the ground beneath them had already begun to crumble. I wasn't at the venue, of course. I hadn't been invited. But every moment unfolding there was projected clearly onto the monitor in my office. Haley, who had full control over the venue's audiovisual system, had installed a small hidden camera under the guise of a system check, allowing me to witness the entire farce in real time. The ceremony proceeded smoothly, and soon it was time to play the video introducing how the bride and groom had met. The lights dimmed, and everyone waited expectantly for a sweet, heartwarming montage to begin. But instead, the screen lit up with a crystal-clear photograph of the groom, Ethan, entering a hotel with another woman on his arm. The entire hall froze in an instant. A wave of whispers rippled through the air. The color drained from Olivia's face, and my father shouted, "What is the meaning of this?" But the nightmare was only beginning. The images continued to change. Ethan kissing one woman, then another. Then came screenshots of his messages. "I love you. Once I leave Olivia, I'll be with you." Olivia let out a piercing scream and collapsed to the floor. Ethan's face turned deathly pale, and his parents trembled with rage. And then, at the very end, a voice echoed throughout the ballroom. My voice. It was the recording of the conversation I had secretly taped weeks earlier. "So, about the wedding expenses. You'll cover everything, right? Because you're family. That's only natural, isn't it?" "Oh, it's not a mistake. You're my sister, but not really my family, are you?" Olivia's ugly nature was laid bare before every guest, with not a single shadow to conceal it. The hall that had moments ago been filled with laughter and applause was now smothered in cold silence, and the eyes that turned toward her were no longer warm with celebration, but heavy with disgust. My parents covered their faces, and Olivia could do nothing but sob uncontrollably. Beside her, Ethan's enraged parents shouted at the staff, "Get the manager! Who did this?" Those words were the final gong, the signal that this farce had reached its end. The guests understood that they could no longer remain there. One by one, they began to stand, awkwardly avoiding eye contact, and soon the wave of departures spread across the entire hall. They were no longer guests celebrating love, but unwilling witnesses to a scandal, whispering among themselves or casting contemptuous glances at the pitiful family as they hurried toward the exit. No one touched the lavish dishes that the chef had prepared with such pride, nor the beautifully decorated wedding cake that stood untouched like a monument to their downfall. Just minutes earlier, the family had stood at the height of happiness. Now they were reduced to a miserable spectacle, objects of pity, curiosity, and disdain. I watched it all quietly through my monitor, and as I did, I could feel the heavy lump that had weighed on my heart for years slowly melt away. Yes, this was the perfect wedding I had prepared for them, and the perfect new beginning for me. When the storm of vengeance had finally passed, a stunning silence surrounded me. That night, after the wedding had collapsed into chaos, my smartphone rang over and over again, shrill and desperate. The name Olivia flashed on the screen. I simply stared at the incoming call, my hands still. The ringing stopped, then started again. The relentless repetition told me everything about her panic. Eventually, the calls ceased, replaced by a single message. "You ruined my life. This is all your fault." I glanced coldly at the hysterical text, then closed the screen without replying. That was the last I ever heard from her. Weeks later, my parents appeared at my office without warning. They looked years older, their faces etched with despair. The moment they saw me, they nearly collapsed. "Natalie, please forgive us. We were wrong. All this time." My father's voice trembled, and my mother could do nothing but cry. Only after losing everything, and the financial support I had once provided, did they finally understand the magnitude of their mistakes. "We envied your success. We couldn't bring ourselves to love you as our real daughter. We were so wrong." My father's quivering apology, at least, sounded genuine, but their words no longer reached my heart. I wish I had heard those words sooner, but it's too late now. The day you told me I wasn't really family, that day, the bond between us was completely severed. When they tried to speak again, I raised my hand to stop them. "I'll accept your apology, but we're no longer family and I will never welcome you back into my life. Please leave, and don't ever appear before me again." Turning my back to them, I walked away without a single glance. Behind me, I could hear my mother's sobs, but they no longer stirred any pain inside me. Weeks later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a frail voice came through. "Natalie?" It was Olivia, crying. Her engagement had, of course, been broken off. Ethan's affairs with multiple women had come to light. His parents had disowned him, and he had been cut off from all financial support. And now the mountain of unpaid wedding invoices had fallen squarely on Olivia's shoulders, leaving her on the brink of bankruptcy. She had turned to our parents for help, but without my financial support, they were barely managing to survive themselves. "Please, help me. You're all I have left." Those words, I had heard them so many times before, and every time I reached out my hand, but not anymore. "Help you? Of course. Here's some advice. Why don't you ask your real family? I'm not family, remember?" My voice was as cold as glass. Before she could respond, I ended the call and added her number to my blocked list. That was the end, completely and finally. After that, I was free from the burden of a false family. I devoted myself to my business, surrounded by people who truly valued me. Eternal Garden thrived more than ever, celebrating the joyous beginnings of countless couples. And most importantly, Haley, my dearest friend and now business partner, stood beside me, a true family born not from blood, but from choice. The simple, quiet days I spent with her became the most precious treasure I had ever known. As for Olivia and my parents, I no longer wondered what became of them. I no longer needed to play a role in anyone else's story. For the first time, as the sole protagonist of my own life, I have finally welcomed my true spring.